Round 20 tips. They're coming late again. I apologise. I promise next week, Tuesday, they will be out 100% certainty. Just a busy early part of the week, but we're getting it out again on the Thursday night. I'm literally recording this 2.5 hours before the Hawks game tonight. Anyway, last week's tips. Pretty simple. Did alright, actually. Got, 7 out of 9. So obviously, I got the first 5 right, or maybe even 6. No, that's all. That one was a bad tip. But yeah, GWS, I actually thought they'd win by more. Essendon actually showed up. We're pretty good. The Dogs, again, the margin looks small, but, it was nowhere near as close in that terms as that. Hawthorn were always going to beat Port Adelaide, let's be real. Sydney were always going to win. A lot of people went Melbourne here, and I'm not sure why. A new Carlton would sort of, they're just better. They were going to win. It was extremely close, but, I just had to go them. This one was silly. I was like, at home, your last winnable game of the season probably. Harley Reid dropped 27-1 or something ridiculous, but man, Richmond, yeah, maybe I should never doubt them again. I believe I've tipped them once this year, and it was against North Melbourne, which is insane. I've also, another team, St Kilda, who lost, as I predicted, I've only tipped them once this year. That's insane to me. And then I tipped Fremantle. I tipped Collingwood against Fremantle. I think, that one's a 50-50. Back-to-back losses for Collingwood is crazy. And then Adelaide, blitzed. I did not expect it to be by that much, but they pounded over the Suns. So, yeah, some alarm bells ringing at Gold Coast, but they're hanging on for now. But anyway, we get into tonight's game. It's Hawthorn, Carlton. A lot is riding on this game. We're not losing. We're simply, this game, we will not lose. We're sitting 5th place on the ladder. Finals are in jeopardy, especially if we lose this. We lose this, I think we miss the 8, because it's just not a game you can lose. We've lost 1 game in our last 5. That was against Fremantle, a solid team, especially at home. And they've won, I think, 7 of their last 8 or something ridiculous. Like that. So, or maybe it's even 8 of their last 9. They've been terrific for the Dockers. So, it's not a horrible loss to hold, but Will Day is the main talking point about tonight. He comes back. He is going to be a game changer. He opens up that midfield so much. You can't tag both him and Jai Newcomb. One of them is going to pop out. And it's just going to control the tempo, and, the hype in that team is going to be back. And I think you're going to see the back end of the year for Hawthorn be very scary. A lot of people saying we can drop out of the 8. I think it'll be the opposite. I think we could climb into the top 4. I don't think we will, but I could see us winning 3 or 4 of the last 5. The only game where I'm like, yeah, we definitely won't win is Adelaide in Adelaide. And even then, he is that much of a game changer. And Adelaide have been so poor against, the topper sides. Up until recently, they've been terrific. But, they really did struggle, kind of like the Hawks. So could the Hawks also shift? And they've beaten Adelaide before this year. So, but Carlton do have a reason to show up. Sam Doherty retiring. It's his last game. Why the fuck have you announced it now? That scares me. But the reason I'm going to back the Hawks, and I'm going to back us by 5 goals, is just simply the fact that Carlton are just shit. They won't turn up just because someone's retiring. They didn't turn up for Michael Voss when the players all said they would. They absolutely fumbled the ball. Charlie Curnow literally wants to leave, and then Michael Voss goes out in public. Obviously, he was asked the question, could have ignored it or answered it differently than saying, oh yeah, he's a Carlton player. He will be a Carlton player basically for life. And it's like, well, that's just going to anger Curnow more. You don't even want Harry Mackay around. There's just a lot of internal issues in this club, and I can't see them winning. So I'm going to go the Hawks by 5 goals. We've been very solid again. I think, we've won 6 of our last 7, with the loss being to Fremantle. And a good bounce back win in shit conditions last week. So, yeah, give me the Hawks tonight. We'll be there. So, yeah, well, not literally. I will be in this fucking chair streaming it. But I'll actually be watching this week's game. I'm not missing it like I have the last 3. Friday night, why are Essendon playing another primetime? They play 4 of the next 5 weeks primetime games. Ridiculous. This team has, I think, 13 or 14, maybe even 15 primetime games this year. And they're going to have another one in round 24 because, Gold Coast. Oh, no, not Gold Coast, sorry. Well, yeah, they will have to play Gold Coast. likely on the Wednesday after round 24, which means they're going to have one of the earliest games possible. They just suck. They don't suck. Well, they do, but they have reasons. They're just going to tank at this point. They're going to get battered. The Dogs are winning this by 90 points. I'm moving on. The Dogs wreck every shit team. Can't beat anyone good. That's the story of the Dogs. The inconsistency of them. They will roll the Dogs here. The Bombers here by 80 points, and then fumble to the next good side that they have to play. But yeah, give me the Dogs. Not much to say about this one. The start of the derbies. GWS, Sydney. Sydney have won the last 5 of these, which is insane. But I'm going GWS. It might sound crazy. I probably should go Sydney, especially with the form they're in. Again, I think they've won even, 6 of their last 7. Something insane like that. They've definitely won 4 of their last 5, with that loss being to the Bulldogs, which surprisingly the only half decent side the Dogs seem to beat. I mean, out of that top 10, they've beaten 2 sides, I think, which was GWS and Sydney, which is absolutely crazy. So that's a bit embarrassing. But GWS, mate, they've won their last 5. They've beaten Brisbane at the Gabba. They've beaten Gold Coast, and they've also beaten Geelong. Comfortably beat Geelong, by the way, mind you. They've beaten some terrific teams, and then they easily breezed past the Eagles and then the Bombers last week, who actually, performed decently well. They've been getting their wins, and I think they'll get another one. They're really going to push for being that top 4 side, as we know they're capable of, and they're going to make that premiership push now in the back half of the year, as most people predicted and said that they'd definitely be up there for the premiership. And it was looking good for the first 6 games. They were 4-2, and then boom, that dip in form when they won just 1 of 5, or maybe even 1 of 6, was absolutely absurd. And it was Geelong that ended it all. That dip in form. But with Hogan most likely back, Taylor as well back, I think I think they'll win this. I mean, Sam Taylor is just a massive difference, as well as Hogan. You've got one of the best key forwards and the best defender in the league, so it's like that's going to change everything. So as much as the Swans are trying to make this late push, I think they'll fall short. So yeah, give me the Giants, and give me them by 2 goals in the start of the derbies. Gold Coast, Brisbane. Yeah, this is at 1:20 p.m. on a Saturday. Yet Essendon Bulldogs is on TV. Out of the 2 games to pick, you've picked Hawthorn, who are going to comfortably beat Carlton, let's be real. And then you've got the Bulldogs, who are going to smack Essendon. Yet the next 2 games after that are both going to be golden games and very close games. At People's First Stadium, Gold Coast, man, they've been dodgy. They lost 3 in a row, then they won 3 in a row, including Collingwood, left them goalless in a half, and then went goalless in a half the week later. It seems like they can't play away from home, but they can certainly play at home. But if there's a team that doesn't give a shit about, or how weird or dodgy they look, but they'll beat you anyway, it's Brisbane. Brisbane will beat everyone good. They've got a top 3 record against the top 9 sides. They'll get the job done here, as they usually do against their little brothers, and they'll win by 2 goals. I think it'll be a very good close game. But yeah, give me the Lions. There's no reason to back Gold Coast after that performance. Brisbane are 4 on the trot. They smacked Geelong, comfortably beat Port Adelaide, smacked Carlton as expected, and then beat a solid Bulldogs side who, yes, despite the Dogs never being able to beat an actual good side, they're still a solid side themselves. So yeah, give me the Lions here. Another derby, Fremantle West Coast. How good do Fremantle look? I mean, again, they've won 7 in their last 8, something wild like that, with that one little loss to Sydney, and it looked like they could drop out of the 8, but then they beat Hawthorn, Collingwood back-to-back weeks, and beat Collingwood away from home. I know, it was just by a point or whatever, but fuck, they look good. They're going to bully West Coast here. West Coast is so bad. I mean, they've won 1 game all year. It was a 28-point win against St Kilda, of all teams. This screams a 50-point win to Fremantle. They won't bully them. They don't really bully sides that much, Fremantle. It is a derby, so at the end of the day, West Coast will somewhat show up, but I'm expecting Fremantle to absolutely kick ass by at least 50 points. And again, there's a lot of games where it's just not a lot to speak of, because the result is so obvious. Because if it's not 2 top 10 teams playing each other, then it's not going to be a good game. Well, besides the next game. Is it the next game? We'll see. Definitely was not the next game. Kangaroos, Geelong. Yeah, Geelong winning this by at least 10 goals at Marvel Stadium. How they've given St Kilda a 2% chance, I don't know. I don't know who's thinking that, but yeah, Geelong are going to wreck them. I know, they've been a bit dodgy, Geelong, with big losses to I was about to say to Geelong, to Brisbane and GWS, but yeah, they'll win this easily by 10 goals. Again, another one of those games where it's just like, why would I even watch it? Ken Hinkley's final showdown, Adelaide, Port Adelaide. As much as I want to be like, oh, they're going to send Hinkley off with this massive ass win, it could happen as to why the 3% is even there. But, mate, Adelaide have won their last 4. They don't care who they're versing. They're beating them. Smacked Richmond. Had a meh win against Melbourne, but a win's a win. They beat the Dogs at Marvel, by the way, which a lot of people tipped against. And then some people even tipped against them last week against Gold Coast, which I thought was a bit ridiculous. I thought the Bulldogs was more understandable, but Gold Coast, I guess, yes, they did come off a win against Collingwood, so I guess it's not that ridiculous. But at Adelaide, they're just a different species, and I just knew they would get their revenge over being robbed in the Gold Coast. But yeah, I can't tip against Adelaide here. I'm gonna go Adelaide. I'm gonna go them by 3 goals. I think it'll eventually be relatively comfortable. Port Adelaide will try, but and I think they will put up for probably a half, maybe even 3 quarters. But then Adelaide will kick away. All it will take is 1 good quarter from Adelaide because, well, they're the best scoring team in the league, and it's not even close. Or the second best after Geelong. Sorry. But their percentage screams 11 better than Geelong. So as much as you probably want Port Adelaide to win, given that it's a showdown, I've got to tip Adelaide. Especially they could finish first on the ladder, which is crazy to say. They win this, they'll go to the top until Collingwood play, of course. Although I guess with Brisbane's win, Brisbane would actually go to the top. So that top 4 race is heating up, and it's crazy. Hawthorn could be the most realistic team that some want to say to miss the top 8, yet very well could make the top 3 at the same time. It's absolutely insane. I mean, they're tied points with Geelong and with Brisbane, Collingwood and Adelaide all to play, and it's a big if, but if they won all 3 of those, they could nearly finish first, which is, ridiculous to say. But, all of these teams are playing against each other in the next few weeks, and it's really going to tie up the ladder. But yeah, give me Adelaide. The graveyard games start. St Kilda, Melbourne. I'm going Melbourne. St Kilda won this matchup last time. They probably will do it again. They do technically look like the better side. Because, despite only having 5 wins and 13 losses, their percentage is still a whopping 85, which is crazy. So it shows that they do, compete in games, but they've just been bullied and, they've lost their last probably 7 in a row, something like that. They were competitive against Collingwood, competitive against Fremantle, Hawthorn, Sydney and Geelong. That's a tough 5 games to have, by the way, but again, they're all losses, so... whereas Melbourne smacked Sydney, not that that's really anything considering when they did play Sydney, but I think they'll get their revenge here at Marvel Stadium. St Kilda win away at the G. St Kilda do play better at Marvel, we all know that, and Wanganing Miller is a player and a half. And actually, with Stephen May out, maybe I do switch my tip to St Kilda late, but I'm going to stick with Melbourne because I absolutely hate St Kilda, and I have this thing with St Kilda and Melbourne, and I'm just going to back the D's over St Kilda every day of the week because, well, screw it, we've got to stick by it. We have to stick by it. And even if St Kilda win, it would have to be, a relatively comfortable margin to actually overtake the D's, but it would push Essendon in that bottom 4, which is kind of crazy. And how the hell are Richmond tied on the same amount of wins as St Kilda? Imagine being a St Kilda fan, I couldn't. But yeah, give me the D's by 15. Again, Sunday games, they're just not very good. Completely skipped a game, I do apologise. This game was actually first, but, we all know where I'm going with this. I get it, it's funny, because you look at the last 2 games, one of these guys have a 100% win rate, and the other one has a 0% win rate, and the one with the 100% win rate are not the current team sitting first on the ladder, but, when the 2 losses are by 6 points and 1 point, it's like, why, it doesn't even matter. Whereas Richmond versus a literal VFL Essendon side, and then they beat West Coast. So it's like they didn't beat any good sides. But in fairness, Richmond got to give them some flowers. But Collingwood will win this, win it comfortably. Whether they have players in or out, they don't really care. They'll win this by at least 50. And again, there's just a lot of bad games this week. You know, there's some massive ones with the showdown. Like, you know, you've got a good game with GWS Sydney, Gold Coast, you know, Brisbane. Hawthorn Carlton could be alright if, you know, Carlton do show up. Obviously, you got the Western Derby, but again, it's so one-sided. As is the showdown, but maybe it being Ken Hinkley's last game, they really do show up. But, you know, those are my tips. At least, obviously, the summary on the side, it's that side, sorry. But yeah, my 3 guarantees this round. I'm going to go the Hawks. I just don't want to go too boring. Although they are called guaranteed wins for a reason, I suppose. So I will go the Hawks, I'll go the Dogs, I'll go Geelong. I'll just play it safe. It's my 3 guarantee tips for the round. But yeah, that's round 20. We're already in round 20, but Will Day being back will be the main, you know, storyline this week. And, you know, he'll drop 25 and 1, come back to this video after it happens, and up the Hawks.